All right, everybody. What's going on, everybody? And turn that down just a bit. How's it going, everyone? My name is Ian, and welcome to another Pixelogic stream. Some of you know me as Sculpts, so gonna round up the intro real quick. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Come on, you guys know. How you guys doing? Welcome in, peeps. Welcome in. I have a new setup today. I have a new mic, so let me know if it's vocally too loud. I looked like I was clipping a bit, so let me turn that down. Hopefully that's not too bad. I'm used to speaking loud because I usually have a mic over here. What's up, Bad Cat? How you doing? Yeah, it's a new setup today, so hopefully it's good. All right, let's get into it. So for the last few weeks, I've been sculpting my version of Ken Masters from Street Fighter. And I always go through the whole process, typically, from start to finish. So I like showing the Valley of the Suck. I don't necessarily like going through and kind of hiding that, because I really think it's important for artists to understand that even as professionals, we tend to, I don't want to say struggle, but we tend to try, we have to work through stuff, and I find it always helpful. So that's typically what you get with me, although, as future persists, I'm always looking for new ways to innovate my streams, but that's kind of what you get. So we've been working on him for the last few weeks, and I really started detailing some stuff off stream, but that's where we left off, so here we go. Hello, what's up, Uzar? Oh, it sounds good? Perfect. That's what I like to hear. So this is kind of where we left off. We're going to start detailing some more tears in his gi, and then I want to start texturing that a little bit more, starting to get that finalized. We're at the point now where detailing is a little bit more crucial, but I really wanted to get his face and his body and his hair locked in most of the way. So we're pretty much at a good spot to continue forward. I may mess with his hair a bit more because I feel like it's a little weird, but that's okay. We get to discover all that. So let's go ahead and get into it. And let's see what we can get done today. I am going to be streaming for about 3 hours, so that's usually until 8 p.m. my time. But let's do it. All right, let's go ahead and clear this off. Boom. So I was actually kind of detailing the body a bit, and I wanted to work on the back just a teeny bit. Let's see here. Oop, let's get my pure ref up. Hello. Ile? Is that how you say it? Hi, welcome in, welcome in. Okay. Let's kind of get the back anatomy cleaned up just a smidget. There's a little bit of tweaking we can do here. I kind of get that. And that's a little bit more like that. Go ahead and grab just a bit of a muscle brush, and we're going to go ahead and just start kind of cleaning this up a bit. It's a little rough back here, so I spent a couple minutes during the week to fish his muscle out. We're going to go over some veins here in a little bit, because we want him to look a little bit stronger than he currently does, and veins always seem to do that little bit of a trick. So tips for a new 3D artist? Tips for a new 3D artist. I got a bunch, but new to me is within at least 1 year of sculpting or doing 3D artists. So I would say ideally what you want to do is explore. Take this time right now to explore different terrains, explore environment art, explore characters, explore props, explore 3D printing if you can, because right now you haven't really found your niche, and it's really easy to get distracted with, oh, I just want to do this. Try a bunch of little things, try some hard surface, try some organic sculpting, box modeling even, and that will really kind of help open your eyes a bit on what's out there. And then as you start progressing further, you're going to kind of land where you want to be. But if you build the skills of what the industry we call a generalist, somebody who is kind of well-rounded and can do a little bit of everything at a basic to intermediate level, when you start specializing in something like toys or games, VFX, manufacturing, engineering design, you then will have a better understanding of, you'll build a good foundation, and then that foundation will help you thrive when you start to specialize. So take the time, explore a little bit, try to find a bunch of artists, different artists out there. Even if one that you really like has gotten you excited and pumped and motivated, I definitely say there's tons of different artists out there, so check them out too. Actually, here's a good spot because there's typically a lot of different artists that show up. So yeah, explore. That's really my biggest tip. Okay, so we have this belt that I want to start detailing. I want to start getting a little bit more of some stitching laid in. So what we're going to do here is we kind of box modeled this a bit. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to bring in my reference. You'll see here we have all of these different stitching that's inlaid throughout. And I want to get something like this in the belt. We might do some stitching and hiragana, katakana, or kanji. We might try to find, so it says Ken Masters or something, or Shotokan Karate, which is their... So we might find that and then try to do some stitching in line. But right now I'm really looking at this detail here, and I want to replicate that. So we're going to build that right now. Absolutely. So first things first on this, we're in dynamic subdivision. So that means that I built this like such, but the it's all just kind of fake geometry right now. It's showcasing it being smooth when it's not as smooth. Once we okay this, we're then going to get subdivision level 3, and then that's gonna allow us to have a little bit more detail. But before I do that, what I would like to do is turn off dynamic subdivision real quick. And I want to apply a few more edge loops so that I can have a decent size without having too much detail. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the ZModeler brush, hover over this edge, insert, and insert multi-loop with keep group. And I'm going to add in some more edge control here. Exploring is good. All the videos on YouTube is about 3D art and podcasts and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the more we explore as artists, the more you'll really start to have an understanding of what's out there. I know I started a little over 6 years ago, and for the first 3 years, I was lost. I was just like, here, sculpting is it. That's it. Just do sculpting. And luckily, I had gotten pretty decent at sculpting at that time, but I was still confused on what was out there. And it wasn't until I started streaming and took a mentorship that I was started getting more focused in on what's possible. So. Okay, so right now I'm going to take the time and I'm going to be adding my own edge loops here because I know stitching has a lot of detail. And once you repeat an action with ZModeler, you can repeat that action by just touching the next loop. So I was able to come in here real quick. There we go. And kind of repeat a few actions to get some quick lines. And that's going to be good. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to add some control lines. So we're going to turn back to single edge loop. And I'm going to put some edge loops here towards the outside. And then towards the inside on the bottom. There we go. Now when I hit dynamic subdivision, it looks a little bit more rigid, and that's okay. We can clean this up just a bit, get rid of that line. And I'm going to move this edge loop. So I'm going to go to slide and complete loop. I'm going to kind of move that, get a better fall off happening. We space these out just a little bit more. You're never stuck with where that edge loop is. You can move it a bit. And what I would like to do, maybe soften this up a bit and maybe pull that around. Hey, what's up, Eric? How you doing? Hey, what's up, Choi? Polymesh or Dynamesh, which is good for 3D printout? Will you ZBrush it to higher resolution before printout? So, ideally, what I will be doing is, I tend to fall on the Dynamesh route. It depends on what it is, of course, that I'm doing. It varies. It really depends. But Dynamesh guarantees watertight. So a lot of times I will Dynamesh, get it watertight, but project history from my ZBrush version, because then I can get the highest detail quality. I'm going to be going over all of that when we finally get to the key cutting process, but for right now, I'm going to be sticking with ZBrush most of the time. Want somebody professional in the industry kind of contact you. So, if anybody has a Discord, the best way to actually really get feedback, go ahead and pop into my Discord. Here's a link to the link tree. And if you go down to the bottom, pop in the Discord. I have a Discord where it's a lot of super talented artists who come in, both professional and hobbyist and amateur, who are always seeking feedback. So pop on over there, do the Discord, because what you can do is you can actually come in to work in progresses, and I may not be available at the time that you reach out, but you can tag me and I can come in, I can take a look at it. But we also have other people that have long conversations about their work, so definitely feel free to pop in there. That's the best way to get a hold of me if you're looking for feedback. Awesome. Well, welcome in, welcome in. Okay. So here we'll control that edge loop. All right. Now that we have that, what I want to do is I want to start applying some of this stitching. Oops. I want to control this loop right here. Literally going to adjust that. Pivot that. Yeah. There we go. That's a little bit better. Nice and clean. What's up, Ryan? How you doing, buddy? Speaking of the Discord, this guy Ryan right here who just showed up, he's somebody who also helps in the Discord, giving feedback and advice to new artists. So if you're looking for a place to kind of hang your hat as a new artist, we have instructors, volunteer teachers, and people who just love to help. Definitely pop in. All right. So now that we have something, so I'm also keeping in mind thickness while I'm sculpting, because we are talking about 3D printing, and generally speaking, a belt wouldn't be this thick. But for what we're doing and the scale in which we're probably going to print them, which I'm thinking about is at least 1/6 scale, we want to make sure that there's something there. But I'm thinking this might be a little too big. So I'm actually going to hover over this face with Z Modeler, and I'm going to pick all polygroup. I'm going to start to scale this. Now, of course, we have different versions, so let's hover over the edge. Let's actually go to polygroups. Oops, where are you? There you are. And we're going to go ahead and group by normals, which will give me something different. And as I use ZBrush and QMesh, if I hold Shift, I can shrink this a little bit. And actually, let's go ahead and get rid of this one edge loop that we built earlier while we do this. So let's hover over the edge, insert, delete that. And now I can hold Shift and I can actually skinny that up a bit. There we go. Then come back in and add in those supporting edge loops, which will give me a little bit more of what I'm looking for. Good, how are you? Awesome. Heck yeah, lots of teachers, experience all over the world and industry. Heck yeah, I'm doing good, man. Doing good. It's Sunday. I know it's Easter for a lot of people, so just a chill stream today. Nothing too crazy. By the way, happy Easter, everybody, for those who celebrate. right. I'm actually going to want to go ahead and shrink this little section up. So what I'm going to do, hover in, we're going to choose local sim, and we're going to shrink that down. The reason why is because that would be pinching typically. There we go, perfect. And actually, while we do this, I'm going to bring this up because in this cookie knot, it would be something more like that. Coming out of there. Up just a bit. Now we want to watch out for clipping, even though it's going to be 3D printing, and we do have, we do have the ability to merge things together, but we want to make sure we're not clipping too badly because that can cause issues later. So take a look and make sure there's no visible nasty collisions. We want it to look as good as possible. Yay! Absolutely, not a problem, Troy. So I moved the entire polygroup side. So what I did was I isolated all of the polygroups by going group by normal. So if I were to hit Control W and I have all these different groups, I was able to do groups by normal, which gave me all these different polygroups. And then I chose Z modeler, which is B, Z, M. And then I hovered over the face of the polygroup that I wanted to control, hold spacebar, and the important part is Q mesh and polygroup all. I made sure that the edge loop that was nearest the face, I deleted that. And then as I move this up, it's trying to extrude it with Q mesh. If you hold shift, it actually stays attached, and I was able to bring that in. If you hold control, you can actually pick off and duplicate the whole face itself. So with that feature in mind, I was holding shift and I just skinnied that in, pushed it as close to the edge loop as I wanted, and then went ahead and repeated that process. The modeler is very popular and very powerful. So definitely a really good trick. Go ahead and save that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get these stitching in. Now ZBrush has a stitch brush, which is helpful for us. So we don't have to build anything, but we do need good information for this. So with this isolated now, what I'm going to end up doing is going to Geometry, Dynamic Subdivision. I'm going to go ahead and apply this, and this is going to apply 3 levels of subdivision. It's right now, it's out about 1,200 poly. So when I hit this, it's going to go up to subdivision level 3 to give us a little bit more topology. Gives us around 19 now. But now our subdivision is real, and we can hold more information with this subdivision versus this subdivision. Now, that's if we're going to try to stitch this in by sculpting. You could theoretically keep that subdivision and create a stitch brush that has, actual geometry, but I don't want to do that. I would just want it to be sculpted in. The detail would be easy to control. So I'm going to actually go up to about 1 million here. And then we're going to pull up the stitch brush, which is default in ZBrush. And that is, where are we? Right here, Stitch Basic. Go ahead and say OK. Oops. S, and then Stitch Basic, right there. And now, as you can see here, if I were to go ahead and draw this out, we're going to get this type of stitching that's sculpted in. But that's a little too intense. So we'll drop the intensity, turn off mRGB, because we don't want too much happening there. And then, of course, too, it's brush size dependent. So I can find a good Z intensity that works for me. And we're going to do that. Since in my artwork room, my arts, I'd like you to check it out. Not a problem. I could definitely pop in after the stream and check it out for sure. And thank you for joining. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and come through. In fact, let's go up one more. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That's nice. I like that. So we're going to go ahead and just start kind of drawing out this detail. Like I said, this is a sculpting brush. So we're just going to be applying this. I like to apply things by hand. I'm definitely that person that enjoys the process of placing down each and everything. So there are faster methods, but you feel comfortable to do it the way you enjoy. And to continue this brush, you just start right where you left off, and you start tracing this down. And you just move on through. Go. Not a problem. Hey, what's up, Andreas? How you doing? Now, what's cool about martial art belts, if nobody here has taken martial arts, or if somebody has taken martial arts before, you'll know that the belt itself, they're all handmade typically, or they at least have this handmade feel. At least the black belts do. So come through, and it's kind of neat to give you a little bit of an asymmetrical feel to it all. I'm sure there are some highly manufactured belts, but I know they hand make some, and it's fun. So come through here, and we'll give it that kind of handmade touch. We'll also be giving it some texture noises. Let's back this up a little bit. Those are a little too close. What? Hey, what's happening? I'm doing good. How are you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Hello, hello. We are just hand sculpting some details. Nice and relaxing. Actually, you know what? I'm going to back up a little bit more, because I'm not satisfied with that line. This part for me is personally relaxing. I really enjoy doing it this way. I'm that crazy person that's like, draw the same line 100 times, but we get it done and it looks good. Yeah. Now what's cool is if we really wanted to, we could just duplicate this belt side once we get it. But we'll get there. We'll figure that out. There's beauty in the details. There we go. No, we just started, Rex. Welcome in, welcome in. Will I put pants texture? Absolutely. You know I will. Hands down. We'll probably utilize a little bit of UV master and surface noise to get pants texture on there. I do the texturing last when it comes to the pants, because I haven't decided if I'm going to tear them, and I think I'm going to add a couple little tears. So we'll be doing that in a little bit too. Absolutely, yep. And I'll showcase the long way to do all that so that you guys know how to do it. There we go. Now, when you're doing stitching, especially like this, it's really important to, you know, keep the same brush size. Don't go too crazy with it. Like I said, we might paint on and then do some lettering as well. But I want to research before I do that on Not how to do it. I know how to do it on the type of text we will be putting. So I just won't be putting random text in there. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and isolate just this one right here so that we can get the backside. I have not, actually. I've never had the pleasure of going into Mari. Nope. I primarily focus on toys, so I've been one of those fortunate artists who stays in ZBrush 99% of the time. But I've textured outside of it, but never with Mari. If anybody's wondering, or details scare you, or texturing scares you, just know that texturing is all about layering. Anytime you want to build up details, it's not about getting it all done in one spot. It's about layering your details. Same as painting. If anybody's ever, if any of you have ever painted in depth, you know that painting is just layering, and sculpting's the same way. So something like this, you just take your time and you just focus on what you want to achieve. Now, I'm not going to see this inside very much at all, actually. You take a look at it. So, actually, we will see this side. So, let's just make sure we get that line nice and clean. Never mind. Nice, nice. Is anybody having a good weekend? Guys do anything fun? I know some of you, it's already Monday. You're time travelers. What the heck? Cool. So that stitching is pretty neat. Now what we're going to end up doing is accentuating this a little bit. And in between, I'm actually going to be adding in some different lines. Let's go ahead and save this. Okay, now we're going to remember that our brush size is about 2.7. That's super important to remember because when I go to do the other side, if I have to do the other side, I have to be able to keep that. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out, but it's important enough. Now we're going to go down standard, and we're going to turn on our lazy mouse, and we're going to increase that up a bit. And we're going to increase the intensity, and now we're going to go in between these lines here. Now, actually, what we're going to do here real fast is let's go to morph target, and we're going to... Oh, we can't store morph target. Never mind. Oh, yes, we can. Hold on one second. Morph target. There we go. I just had geometry that was hidden. You can't store a morph target if your geometry is hidden. So I went ahead and unhid that, stored a morph target. Now I can come back, and I'm going to isolate this one more time. This will help if I need to clean up any of these edges a bit. Like that. Now, this is a little dark for me to see, so I'm pretty sure it's dark for you guys to see. So let's actually turn off the color. And then let's get in here a little bit more. fast. Let's turn that back off. Let's actually use the chisel brush for this. I think it'll give me better results. More than likely it will. Yeah, it's going to be cleaner. Turn off mRGB. Let's actually grab something a little bit more pointier. A little bit more intense. Have that morph target stored still? Okay, perfect. There we go. I'm good. Good on holiday. I bought the the FlashForge 3D printer and print out many things. Heck yeah! What's up, Chris? Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I still haven't pulled the trigger on a new resin printer yet. Mine has currently died. Oh my gosh. I have to show you guys something. I did a thing. And I did it yesterday. And you guys want to see it? I think you guys will like it. Hey, what's up, Matt? Oh, thanks. Yeah, my other headset died. And I had to get a new one. So I went, yeah, it stopped holding a charge, which was just a bummer. So let me show you guys. I want to show you guys this thing that I ultimately ended up doing. So, Attentive Slug, what's up? Hey, what's happening? All right, you guys prep for this? Here we go. Here we go. I'm going to transition full screen. I don't know if I can show off all the glory of this wonderful piece, but finally got it painted. It's only been 4 months, but here it is. Finally all came out. It took about 12 hours of painting. It is all glued together now officially, so that's kind of nice. I had some help, which was fantastic, so I definitely have a little bit more skill set to learn on it, but yeah, here she is. Here they are. Woohoo! So, my plan is, okay, so I want to release the file so you guys can have it. I just have one issue with it, and one of the issues I have with it is when I sliced it, I sliced the sword in the hands on Tanjiro to a little separately. And I ended up printing it in FDM, which worked, but then it didn't fit correctly. So I'm actually going to have to figure out how to break up the hands in order to get that to work correctly. So that's the issue. I got it to fit because I heat up the FDM till it was nice and pliable and stuck it in and then cooled it off. So that's how... So that's one of the reasons why I haven't released it and I haven't had time to go back and fix that. So... If you guys would like it as is, I can release it as is, but I'll put that warning, but I would like to eventually fix that. So maybe we can spend some time on the stream getting that done in order to fix it, if you guys would like. So up to you guys on that, but there it is. Demon Slayer piece is official. It's done. Looks great. And if anybody's curious, it is... about 10.5 inches in height. So yeah. How does it feel? How does it feel to hold it all finished? It feels amazing, actually. So I had help. My girlfriend and I helped. We painted it, and it was amazing. And yeah, it looks amazing. I'm really excited for it. So it looks so good. I'm blown away by it. So it's super awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you guys like it. Woohoo! What's up, Snickles? I know. It's taken, oh my gosh. I feel like that project just took forever, but part of it was me just like too scared to paint. So, what's up, Pancakes? How you doing? Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So, so yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll pick a stream, or I'll just freaking fix the hand on it, and then and then that will just kind of help everything out. So that's where we're at with it. All fine, all fine. How about me? I'm doing really good. I can't complain, man. I can't complain. It's Sunday. Life is good. I am going to have a really fun work week coming up, so I can't complain there. Overall, life is good. I get to create really cool stuff for a living, so I can't complain. You know? Definitely know that feeling, yep. Yeah, so this is the belt I'm currently working on at the moment. We're getting some little details in there. And then I think what we're going to do is split it off, try to mirror and weld it. Because I I hand sculpted the stitches with the stitch brush. And now I would like to copy that. We'll add a little bit of noise. But yeah. Doing some little details today to make things feel a little bit more complete. And doing everything by hand is fun. It relaxes me, I have to say. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, why do you, like, do everything by hand and repeat lines? And it's honestly super relaxing for me. So, that's why. This way I do it. Let's go in here. Heck yeah. Heck no. Yeah, no, it's calming. Calms my nerves doing the details by hand. But then you know what's fun is that when I look at something and I'm like, man, sometimes there's beauty in the imperfections. It's funny. I actually, a while ago, I never really told the story. I would say about a year and a half ago, I got turned down from work. I was applying to this place, and I got turned down because they had said that my work was too clean. And I didn't know what that meant, so I picked their brain. And essentially what they were saying was everything looked too perfect. And they wanted it to not be so perfect. And I thought that was fascinating. So, when I started learning texturing and detailing, even though I did a lot of it by hand already, it was kind of interesting to get that feedback. So, I started taking my time and doing a little bit more hand texturing. And then I noticed that my work got a little bit more recognized. And I thought, you know, there is this fine line between getting it done quickly and getting it done right. And for me, when I started finding comfort in texturing by hand, it really inspired me as an artist. So I started doing it more often, and the response was great. Now, of course, I have a lot to learn, like anybody else. Any artist, we should be growing and trying our best to, you know, improve daily. We never want to stay stagnant. But that response really resonated with me. So, and because I don't do things for games typically, mostly toys, and 3D printing, there was comfort there. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just focus on detailing a little bit differently. Now, that being said, when production time hits and I got to crank things out, I definitely rely on some shortcuts. But it's fascinating to, like, be part of the journey and recognize things that, you know, other people notice. So, oh, thanks, Baze. Hey, what's up, Slow-Mo? What's happening? Yeah, I really feel that imperfection is what sells realism, especially. Absolutely, yep. Which brush did you use to create those stitches? So in ZBrush, if you hit B and then S, there is a Stitch Basic brush. and it's just default ZBrush. You just want to have some good topology. So I'm working with about 2 million at the moment. And then I definitely recommend that you have a good base resolution to capture all that detail. Because notice, like, this is 530. If I go up, this is 2000. There's still no stitching. This is 8,000, still no stitching. This is 33,000. We start getting stitching. This is 135, almost there. Here's half a mil, and then 2 mil. And so you really, you do need a little bit of, data there. So if you go to use it, just make sure that you have a decent resolution and set your foundation to be a good resolution, and you should be pretty good. Back to here. Let's go ahead and put 10 off to the side here for a second. Let's bring that color back so you guys can see where we're at. I don't know. I usually stamp them over there, and I didn't do it this time. So let's do that this time. Let's open this up, and then let's go back to solo mode, and then we'll turn off those colors. There we go. Go ahead and save this real fast. You're absolutely welcome. I'm gonna end up adding some noise because it's still a little too clean, and I'm also gonna be fixing some of the little imperfection. Actually, those might be too small to even want to fix. Oh, just draw the line in. Okay, fine. We're gonna zoom in. It's one line. It's like, we're not doing it. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I'm fine. I'm looking to you. Oh, yeah. I'm happy to have you here as always. Hey. Boo, 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 boo. All right. Coming in here. I really love the lazy mouse feature because it really just helps bring it all together. There we go. Question. When you work with toys, how do you know how gravity will actually work with a toy? If it's a standing toy, for example. That is a great question, Baze. That's a great question. First things first, experience will play a huge factor in that. And then the second thing is knowing the center of gravity of most things. So if you're looking yourself to get into toys or 3D printing, the thing we want to remember is really paying attention to the basics of gravity. So for something like Ken Masters here, right? We're going to go ahead and pull up a pen. Oop. Okay. So ideally, like on a human, which will be the easy explanation, you know, we have the head, we have the pelvis, and then we have the feet. So typically speaking, we can gather that if the head and the feet and the hips are aligned, it should pretty much play a factor in staying straight. There might be some little things like the base of the feet may be too round and we have to flatten that out, but theoretically, just understanding that, you know, when things fall in line, typically they will stand. Also, too, there is a fun little rule to remember, which is anything that is at least 45 degrees, it will stand on its own. So, for example, the theory is that a staircase, if built correctly, will stand perfectly fine because it's within that range. So if you stood it right here and there was nothing underneath here, but it stood up, it should stand theoretically. So that being said, what we tend to do, especially with toys, is we tend to kind of follow a tripod effect or tripod rule of thumb. So if you have at least 3 points of contact, or say we call it 2 to 3 points of contact, then you should be okay. So we'll look at the front view, for example. We have 1, 2, and then it kind of stands on its own. Then with the pelvis here, shoulders. So this in itself should work out fine. The third point of contact is what it's attached to, and that is the base. We want to make sure that the base is at least able to support what is being put on it. So and this would be your third point of contact, because you're not going to have a 3, unless you have a tail, you're not going to have 3 points of direct contact. So ideally you have the legs, and then you have what the legs attach to. But again, falling on physics for a second, we're just looking at how people stand every day. It's weight distribution, and it's the same thing. Now, we can get into crazy theories, and I can go on for about 3 hours, and some may understand, some won't. Just hold that rule of thumb of if the bulk of the weight is perfectly in line with itself, or it's just slightly off, you should stand. But what you want to do is, when you're getting into toys and 3D printing, you definitely want to try it. You definitely want to build something and see what its limitations are. So if you do any type of torture test for your 3D printer, that's also going to give you a really good sense of how something will print and stand on its own. I'm sure you've seen those where, like, you have the scale that's coming out here, and then but this prints without any supports, right? So that's the basic idea of it, just keeping the weight in line with itself. Let me actually show you a more real world example. Well, I'll show you two. So this one right here, we have Chun-Li, Vega, and then the base. And notice how big the base is to the characters. Now, these are just basic concepts. These are not hard, fast rules, because myself and other artists have challenged this to see how far we can push it. But all the bulk of the weight is in the center of this piece. Okay? So if the weight is centered upon something that can hold it up, then it will stand in theory. And that's what we want to remember. Same with, now this is glued together, but it did stand on its own. All the weight, like, notice how Tanjiro is standing, and then notice where Netsuko is, right? So the weight of this piece is actually going to stand pretty well, because the heaviest spot is hovered over Tanjiro's center of gravity. The other thing, too, is when you 3D print stuff, you can kind of cheat some things. You can make her lighter and make him heavier, which then you could start breaking those rules of physics, like, oh, like, this feels like it shouldn't fit, but it does. Well, she's lighter. I'd say about 15% lighter than Tanjiro is. She's smaller, and I gave her a lighter infill, because it's all FDM, which, by the way, it's all FDM. So she's lighter in nature, and I filled him up with like 50% infill, making him heavier, which means he can hold the weight better. So those are little things that you can do. But ideally, basic physics of just keeping the weight centered over itself will get you very, very far. And you'd be surprised what will and won't stand. I've even questioned, like, I don't think that's going to work, and then it worked. So that was a really long diatribe. Hopefully that was helpful. But yeah, ideally, just know where the weight is and distribute it evenly with at least 2 to 3 points of contact, and you should be fine. I missed some stuff, I know that. Yes, in humans, most of the weight should hover over the hips. If everything hovers over the hips correctly and the anatomy is correct, it should theoretically stand correct. The real question comes into when you're doing dynamic poses. When you do dynamic poses, like that Vega and Vegeta, the Vega and Chun-Li, or the Netsuko Tanjiro one, what you really want to know too is you can get away with welding the feet to the base. You can get away with points of contact where, like, that foot is welded to a rock, and that rock is not going anywhere. In fact, actually, one more thing. Here's one I pushed the bar on. This might be a little hard to see, but here's my Darth Grogu piece, okay? And we're going to go ahead and just remove him for a second. And it might be a little hard to see, but on this rock that's on this base, his foot is welded right there, okay? And then I gave a second point of contact where his lightsaber would go. So when I stand him on here, and then I put that lightsaber in its spot, that now completes that little triangle, the 3 points of contact. He's attached to the rock that's attached to the base, and his lightsaber is balancing him on the rock, which is supported by the base, allowing him to appear like he's floating. But in reality, I just welded his foot to the rock. And that in itself allowed me to kind of give him an anti-gravity base, but still hold that weight over the center like it should. So little things like that you can get away with. You can also like key something in really deep and then glue it so that it looks like it breaks the laws of physics, when in reality, it is completely welded. It would be cool if ZBrush had a tipping feature, kind of like how they use gravity for draping. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, it would be. Absolutely, I agree. Thank you so much, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, really fun stuff. The anti-gravity piece for sure. Looking at that for that. Yes, you are looking for that equilibrium. Absolutely. What's up, Death Sacrament? How you doing? Yeah. Let's see. I like sculpting in detail, but I found it cannot be printed out. This is the problem I met with these days. Okay, so if there's detail in which you're having troubles printing out, ideally, what you want to remember is you want to cut those details in more so. So let me give you an example. I'll have Ken floating over here in the space and time. Let's save what we have, and let me give you an example. Let's actually pull up the Netsuko Tanjiro piece real fast, because I can give you some tips on how you want to do that. So where is my nope. Gonna be that's ZBrush live stream 2022. Nope, 2021. Yeah, Demon Slayer statue detailing. Okay, let's open this guy up. Hello from Guatemala. Hello, how you doing? What's up, Christopher? How you doing? Welcome in. Yeah, it's magic. Yeah, it's magic. That's what we do. Everything we do is magic. Okay. So for 3D printing, here's our Netsuko Tanjiro piece. By the way, this is, if anybody's curious, is 46 million before we decimated. So we're gonna zoom in here. We're gonna look at his pants real fast, okay? So when you're detailing something like pants, or just anything that has good detail, what you want to do is kind of accentuate that detail. So what I did for these seams right here, because I knew it was going to be small, and I printed in FDM, so it'll be really hard for me to show you. I don't think I'll be able to. This might be really hard. Yeah, it might be a little hard. Come on, focus. Try this side. I don't know if you can see the seam line right up here. Now, this is FDM print, but I knew that seam line was going to be small. And because I knew it was going to be small, what I did was I cut it really deep. Normally, when I cut seams, I will do something like this. So I'll come in here and I'll cut the seam like that. Maybe hit 1 on the keyboard and make it cut in a little deep, right? But this, you lose about 10 to 15% detail when you print in resin. When you print in FDM, it's really dependent on your settings and what you do in order to not have high detail loss. But I would say with resin printing, you'll lose about 10 to 15%, no problem. And that's after cleanup. So what you want to do is when you see something like this that you like, cut it deeper. You really want to cut something a little bit more along these lines. That's a little too much. Go a little bit harder than that. You really want to cut something more like that. So this is what you're probably used to cutting right about here. This is normal. Most of us live in this space, maybe a little deeper. You definitely want something like this. And then the other thing too is notice this line that comes up on the seam, and then notice these inflate spots. So what I do, especially with seams, is I take my inflate brush. So I go B-I-N for inflate. And then I actually end up kind of inflating that. And then you could take your standard brush, right? And you can come through. This is a poor example as far as fast, but you can give it a little bit of a lift. And now what you can do is when you back up, if you can see it back here pretty clearly, then it should print fine. A lot of us live in this space up here where we're zoomed super close because we're like, yeah, that looks good. And then we do this. We're like, yeah, perfect. Then we print it. And it's like, hey, what happened? Well, back that sucker up. Come back here. Can I see the seam? Yes, I can see the seam. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay, maybe I hit that a little harder. Another thing you can get used to doing, we'll back this up a little bit more, is let's say you print it and the detail loss is not, it's not quite bad, but it's not good either. Feel free to pop into deformation and boost up that contrast a little bit. Now you want to be careful, of course, but you can boost up that contrast like, 20%, and that in itself will give you just a little bit more detail. But again, live in the space back here where you're like, can I see that seam? Can I see the detail? And if the answer is yes, if you can see it back here, you should be okay. So it's a nice way to kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself. hopefully that works out for you. But a lot of it is going to be trial and error, especially when you're printing for the first few times, because you're trying to make the mind connection to the actual print itself. And that is going to take some time. But if you get the sense of zooming out, looking at it, inspecting your work, and like I said, live back here, if the detail comes through and you can tell what's going on, then that's a really good sign that it's going to print well. But again, optimizing your printer settings, not just your model skills, but your printer settings will help keep detail as much as possible. So all that stuff, just kind of remember. But hello from Houston, Texas. What's happening? I actually print both FDM and resin. I started with FDM about 5 years ago, and then I picked up resin printing about 4 years ago. And maybe 3 years ago, actually, is when I picked up my first resin printer. But I lived with FDM actually longer than that. I've been printing FDM for like 8-9 years. So yeah, I have more experience with FDM in the long term, but resin printing, in my opinion, is very easy to get into because you're only dealing with the Z-axis as it builds up. So you don't have to worry so much about, the X and the Y. Where in FDM, you got to worry about, is the bed level? And is that going to print? And is that going to knock into itself? And then it takes forever. So I recommend FDM printing for new 3D printer enthusiasts and I recommend you build your own FDM printer, as in you buy a kit, like, buy a Ender 3, Ender 5 or something. Because then you'll learn troubleshooting skills. You'll understand 3D printing so much faster when you build your own printer. And then when you move into resin printing, all that knowledge transfers over and it's a lot easier to print in resin. So you're just going to end up doing yourself a really big favor and understanding how resin printing works if you know FDM really well. So it can only help you. It can't hurt you. But believe me when I say, so like, for example, right, all of these details right here, this, I'm going to lose this. But I'm going to show you another trick here in a second on actually how to get better cuts when you're in the middle of the sculpt and you know, like, oh, I need this to be a bit deeper. So let's continue drawing these lines up, and then I'm going to show you that. You're absolutely welcome. Not a problem. Right. So, okay. So here we are, and we got all these lines built. And I want to make these lines better, because right now it's weak sauce, right? Well, in ZBrush we have this feature, and let's actually come over here, grab this material, turn off so you can see a little bit clearer. Oh, I need to draw one more line. Hold on one fast. Let me, before I get ahead of myself. I'm going to show you another way to improve your resin printing details, or just your print details, I mean. Okay. So now I can come back here and I can kind of see that detail, but it may not be as good as I want. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this out first, because if worst case scenario is that it crashes on me and then I have to like restart the system. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this up. And I'm going to find where I started drawing my first line. So I'm just scrubbing through the history. Okay, so I'm going to go back, boom, right there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and control tap this spot up here. This is my history state, okay? Now, ZBrush has this fun feature where it remembers exactly what that mesh looks like with its history, so we can call on that at any point in time. Okay. So now that I have that history state there, I'm gonna move all the way forward to where I drew all of those lines out. All right? And then what I'm gonna do is it should be defaulted up here at the top. But if you go to stroke, you have adjust last. And what adjust last does is it takes the last stroke plus the history state that you set, and when you adjust that slider, it's now punching in all of those details. So now I can kick that in even harder. So we went from these soft little lines to this deeper, chunkier section. Now, looks like I had a line go missing on me. So let me fix that. That's probably my fault. Sometimes when you go Control Z a lot, you just end up. There we go. Now I'm going to punch through. There we go. And you can do this multiple times. You can do this all day, but you just don't want to mess up your mesh too much. Ah, see? Okay, I see what's happening here. When I hit Control Z, it removes some of my lines, so just be careful with that. There we go. Okay, go to Control last. Boom. There we go. So that gives me a little bit more detail and a little bit more control. So you can call on that. So you don't have to keep going over and over and over again. You can just make a few strokes, mark your history, or mark your history, make those strokes, and then adjust last, and you're good to go. And then you can have something that stands out a little bit better from afar. And I'm liking that detail. I think we need to go just a little bit more. But that should give me some pretty good results. I like that. This last month I've been using the history tool so much more. Heck yeah, dude. The history tool has saved me countless times. countless times. In fact, I used to have a method, and I urge strongly to try it this way if you're new to detailing, and you experience a crash or two. I don't save ZBrush project files much because it just takes up so much space. But when I'm ready to fully detail a model from start to finish, then a lot of times I will save a ZBrush project and I will have it. I'll come up to document save as, and then I will make sure, file, save as, but I'll check undo history. I'll keep this on. Its default's off. I'll turn that on, and then I'll save all that history so I can focus on getting all the detail in, and then I can go back through my history and punch that detail up. So if you're somebody who likes to detail and you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, especially for 3D printing, you can have that detail file, and then that always saves that state of history. But like I said, do be warned, ZBrush project files, when you save history, get pretty heavy pretty quick, and it's really easy to have a big file, which takes up space. So just be careful with that. But that's one way to do it as well, because that history save state saves me so much time. Okay, what we're going to do here real fast too is I'm going to drop it down to the lowest subdivision level, and I'm going to go ahead and split hidden. And the reason why I'm going to do that is I want to try to mirror and weld, or mirror this this belt with all this detail. Because even though I like to do everything by hand, believe you me, if I could save time, I will. So with it split differently, what I can do is with that one hidden, I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate that, and then I'm gonna have this here. I'm gonna go ahead, go to geometry. I'm gonna delete lower, keeping it at the highest subdivision level. I'm gonna go ahead and go to deformation, and I'm gonna hit mirror. Send that on the other side. That actually looks pretty cool. And then I'm gonna go to geometry and reconstruct subdivision. Give it a second because it's thinking. Okay. There we go. Now I have two sides that are fully detailed. And what I can do now is we'll go ahead and we'll drop the resolution down just a little bit to its lowest safe spot. I'm going to go ahead and kind of mask section off. So then what I can do is come in and offset that, giving it just a little bit of a difference than what we usually have. And then I'm going to boost that detail back up. And that's why we work with subdivision, because it saves all of that hard work. So now I have that in there. And this one, we can just go ahead and delete this one because this one is no longer useful for us. So we will go ahead and go to delete that belt strap, go to save as, and because I made a major change, that I just will go ahead and save a new ZTL, rather safe than sorry approach. And that will give me something a bit more. Let's see. Ian, if you had to choose choose personnel to work on figures, what aspects would you look at to hire them? Andreas. Okay, so if I was... Honestly, one of the biggest skill sets that I think come into play as a toy sculptor is being able to sculpt to a concept. So if you take your time and find concept artists and ask to use their work for sculpting, and kind of shout them out a little bit, talk to some concept artists, try to replicate what you're seeing on 2D, because a lot of times I will just get a concept art of a figure and say, hey, can you make this? Yeah, let's do it. And it's usually a one-to-one. There are some rules, there are some leeway, guidelines, things you can figure out later that, you can't translate perfectly from 2D to 3D. However, you can get really, really close. So practice sculpting from 2D to 3D, following a concept. An artist who follows a concept is going to have really good intuition, is going to know the little details that make that figure what it is, and that's going to tell me they can do the work. So that's a big one. And then showcasing that it could be manufactured via 3D printing. I don't expect, artists to know what injection mold is, or even the process of pad printing, or even understanding, the ins and outs of how something gets produced. But it's really helpful to understand that they at least know how to make a model for 3D printing, because that tells me that they understand at least enough about the manufacturing process to make something into reality, because that's what we're doing. So showcasing that you can follow a concept, showcasing it can be manufactured via 3D printing, that's going to get you very far in the interview process and seen more often. Now that's toys only, so ideally that's what I recommend. So if you're looking to get work as a toy maker, as a sculptor, follow those two things, and then of course just present your best work. Showcase something that has a good, a good render, something that looks nice. In fact, let's pop over to my portfolio real fast, so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. So let's take Captain America bust, for example. Fan art's okay, by the way. I predominantly sculpt fan art, and that's kind of what you're doing when you're a toy maker. You're working for companies where you're producing something that already has IP generally. So it's okay to do fan art in your portfolio. I do. So, and it's gotten me higher. The thing to remember is just call it what it is. It's a tribute fan art, but if you have some sort of concept to show with it, do. For example, let's go over to Gravity Falls, for example. You guys recognize Gravity Falls for what it is, but if you were to take this guy right here, if you follow a concept, show the concept at the bottom. This is the concept for this piece. Here's my final render where I replicated the concept, but I did it in 3D. Now, I had some changes to it, but ultimately it showcased that I can follow the concept for what it was. Same with this guy right here. The one-eyed monster from Creature Box. Here's the concept, right? Here's my sculpt. Now, I took liberties, made it a little bit kind of realistic, not fully stylized, but it looks like the concept. So that's the big thing. And then again, like I said, making things for manufacturing, showcasing that you can break it up into sections and that you can 3D print it. That tells me, hey, this person knows how to produce something to be manufactured, at least understanding enough. I could teach the rest. I can show you how to prep for injection mold. I can teach you how to, prep for whatever. But if you know 3D printing, then the concept's the same. So that's highly what I recommend. And then, of course, too, just have a really good splash page. When you pop on, when somebody pops on your portfolio, you get 30 seconds. That's being generous some days. So 30 seconds of somebody's time, how can you impress them? That's really what you want. So when you send somebody your portfolio, you're saying, this is me. And so showcase your photo, showcase your best work, and always put your best foot forward. And that will get you far quick. So hopefully that's helpful. But yeah. Especially when you work with many tools and not just subtools. Absolutely, yep. Hello, great to see you live. What's up, Dazzler? I'm from Sydney, Australia. Just about to start some detailing a model, so good timing on this video. Heck yeah. Yep, absolutely. Thanks, you have lots of work now. Nice. Also love your work. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, man. So yeah, it's really not. Luckily, as somebody who works in toys, what's really cool is you don't have to worry about topology. You don't have to worry too much about UV maps. You just get to sculpt and have fun. So really keep that in the back of your mind too. Like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm having fun. It's good. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to get it right now. There's always room for improvement. I'm going over 6 years, and I still feel like I have so much to learn. Some days I'm 38, so some days I feel like I'm playing catch up. But honestly, it's never too late. Just, If you ever would like to know what I think of your portfolio, tag me in your Discord, and when I get a chance, I'll pop in, and I can give some pointers if anybody is ever kind of curious on what to look for when it comes to getting hired in the toy industry. So feel free to launch those in the Discord, and when I can, I will pop in and say, hey, this is what I think. But if you look at my portfolio as kind of, it's a good example of what to do. I can even improve on mine a bit, but it's gotten me hired, so it's a good starting spot for what to look for. Now, let's go back to Ken for a second, because we need to now follow the stitching of the cookie nut. So we need to do very similar to what we did on the belt, and then we also need to do the exact same thing on this guy. So let's get into it instead of chatting as often as I do. You guys know. I'm a rambler to stay on target half the time. All right, we're going to add in some information here to have more detail, just like we did before. So I'm just adding in my own edge loops where I think the detail is going to be. Luckily for something like this, we don't have to worry too much about showcasing so much detail. So we can get away with a little bit extra. Okay. So again, this in itself is dynamic topology or dynamic subdivision. Oops, what happened there? So we're going to go ahead, and now that we got that, we're going to apply that. Subdivide a few times. We're going to get something similar to what we had on the belt. Let's go ahead and grab our stitching. So we're going to hit B, we're going to hit S, and then we're going to hit this. For me, it's W, but I've added some extra brushes. So B, S, and then just look for stitch basic. Now, what's really cool is this feature has been kind of around for a while, but I think if you've been in ZBrush for a little over 2-3 years, then you might have noticed that at one point, when you had multiple subdivisions and you hid something, it probably would look a little bit low res. But now when you click a poly group and isolate it and hide the rest, even with subdivisions, it shows you the high res. So I can come in and get that high res look without having to mask it and then bring it back. So that looks pretty close. Now we want to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 stitching and 5 through like that. So 1, 2, 3 coming in here. And with a stitch brush, what you can do is when you draw out a line and stop, just hover over the last line that you did, and that will get you pretty close to starting it up again. So you never want to attack it trying to match it this way. Sometimes you might match it, sometimes you won't, but you never want to just assume. Just try to just line it up with the previous stitch as best you can. So that's what I do. Hover over that last stitch, and nobody will know the wiser. Like that. Coming in here. So we're just repeating stuff. What I'm checking is to make sure that the stitching I have is going to hide a bit. Now what's cool is keep doing that. That's all hidden, so you don't have to worry about that so much. Worry about bottom side. Kind of throw that up. You only need to put details where it's going to be seen. Boom. That. Go. That's looking pretty good. And now we'll go back to the chisel brush. Now we don't want to exceed what the rest of the belt looks like, right? So what we want to do, what we can do is come on up here to our subtool, and at the top, we could pick something like V4, which is a new version of what you're seeing here. Basically, these are subfolders of showcasing your subtools. And then I can just showcase these different belts like that. So now I don't have to have the whole model showing at the same time. There we go. Perfect. So it's already looking more and more like a belt. Sometimes it's just putting the right details in where you need it to be. So now I'm going to isolate this guy right here. Okay, so real quick, if you guys are selecting... Okay, now it does it. Okay, if you guys are selecting any of your polygroups and you get this weird separation, that's because you're using Select Lasso Brush. And what the Select Lasso Brush has as a cool feature is it has the ability to isolate a single edge loop. Well, that also is kind of a problem when you're trying to select stuff. So when you're trying to select different polygroups and you're noticing that you're like picking something and it's not isolating that polygroup, then what you could do is either A, change the lasso to rec, and then you'll never have that problem. I don't like to do that though. I like to leave that on lasso because all you have to do is just go to select rec, which is the exact same thing. And then you can isolate easily. So those are little things to kind of, you know, if you're wondering what that brush does or why it does that, that's why. Okay. So we're going to go ahead now. I'm going to go ahead and control history spot this. I'm going to try to match. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that width might be a little bit bigger. Ah, there we go. That's fine. Going to come through here, and we're going to start adding in these cuts like such. Now, a lot of that is hidden when I add this together, so I'm not worried about that little bit right there. And just so you guys can see the detail a bit, let's actually pop over here. You get a better sense of what that looks like. This. I don't worry about fixing any imperfections with my detail until it's all laid out. So if you're seeing stuff like, ooh, that looks a little crunchy right there, I don't worry about that so much. What I worry about is getting it all out first. Now, if it's unfixable the moment I lay it down, I will try to correct it. But if I think, I can fix that, then I'll come through. Or I'm like, nah, I'm not really going to see that. It's going to be so small that I'm not going to see. Then that's okay. So, you know, make the determination that makes the most sense for you. That's the cool thing about 3D printing is a lot of times you can get away a little bit with like, ooh, that's that little bit. Nobody's going to see that little bit. Don't tell anybody I said that. I got one more spot to do. There. Also going to do a couple other little tricks with these lines. So this isn't the final look. Especially when we have something like that right there. Okay. Now we can go ahead and fix that a little bit. But for right now, what we're going to do before we just start fixing stuff is I'm going to isolate solo this and that adjust last. I'm going to go ahead and push those details up a little bit more. Hola, what's happening? Oh, okay. Whoopsie. All right. I see what happened there. Okay. So I plugged a history state that is arguing with me on that adjust last. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that history. And I'm going to go back to a state in which everything was showcasing. Well, maybe not. Well, that just means it's time for a water break. Happens to the best of us. All right. I saved it recently, so we'll have to redo that. Okay. Cool. Cool. Whoop, whoop. There you go. We'll do that right there. All right. Thanks, man. I'm just like, ah. All right, let's put this back on there. Let's go boop. Actually, you know what? Something I like to do when I detail as well, so going back to the detailing trick, I love to go to render, preview AO, turn on occlusion, and set this to about 20%. It really helps with the details, making it pop a bit. Just so, you know. Alright, let's go back in time. Let's go to V4. Let's turn on the things that we need to turn back on. Boop, boop. Turn solo mode back off. There we go. Alright. Let's go ahead and fix this. I guess if anybody was wondering if it ever crashes, yes. All right, let's do this again. Let's go to apply. So we have our 3 levels of subdivision. Let's kick that up to about our 2 mil mark for our stitch brush to work. And let's go ahead and get this color back. There we go, fill that in there, turn that color off. If you're ever using colors like black, don't go full true black. You won't have any room for shadows. Just a little heads up. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply a morph target, and then we're also going to throw on that history state one more time. Let's grab that stitch brush. And let's make sure that it at least resembles the other stuff. It's a little small. It's a little bit too big. That's just right. Cool. No, I really appreciate that, man. Hey, Tufan, how you doing? Doing good, man. Doing good. We are detailing and getting stuff built the way we want it. The song that's currently on, I don't know if you guys can hear it. I always have music going, but remember at one point I mentioned there was music and everyone's like, what? There's music? Um, Reminds me of YouTube videos that my kids watch. Because it's that royalty-free stuff, and I'm like, but it just makes me laugh. Thanks, man. Dude, Tufan, thanks so much, man. That means a lot. Yeah, I'm really planning on pushing this one to its limits. So that's also why it's taking so long. Really pushing. Each sculpt I do, I always try to make it just 100 times better than the first one. And finding new ways to do new things while still enjoying the process. There we go. That in itself just... That's the other thing, too. I want to say, when it comes to crashes or when things blow up and you're just like, ugh, try not to get so annoyed with when crashes happen. I find it as a good opportunity to think of it as practice. So I was able to lay these stitches down way faster the second time because I already saw them in my head once, tried a few things. I was like, next time I do this, it'll be a lot easier. Boom, ZBrush crashed, came back, and now I'm just laying the stitches down as fast as possible. And it worked out really well, and it feels a lot more cohesive. So if you ever get crashes, yeah, they're annoying and they suck, especially if you hadn't saved in a while. But try to look at it as practice. I find it to be at least a little bit more comforting, if that makes any sense. So, okay, I'm actually going to state this new history spot because we need to do this chiseled brush. So let's actually pick this guy here. And trust me, I know it's easier to say, be more optimistic. Hopefully you know what I'm saying, because it can be overwhelming for sure. Absolutely, when it crashes, I feel like it gets to the same state a lot quicker, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm actually gonna store a new... There we go. Okay. Need to pop out and have some sleep. Have a good stream. Thanks, Tufan, for stopping by. Get some good rest, man. Like I said, I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to deal with these little steps. I'm going to find it a good way to do... Actually, a lot of the ways I go over any types of gashes, I'm actually going to be inflating a lot of that, giving it a little bit more texture. So while I get a little bit of weird crunches, I'm actually going to be cutting those in deeper and then we'll inflate them and give it a little bit more pizzazz. But let's save a little bit more often because we've been hurt before. Time is it? Man, 6:30 already? Time flies. We're already halfway through. Like such. Such. Oop. You know what's really cool about the lazy mouse, and I use it a lot, but really cool about the lazy mouse is if you ever like are in mid-stroke and you're like, oh, I need to go over here. It's really neat to be able to just extend that tail, slow it out. As long as you keep even pressure, you just take your time and produce cleaner strokes a lot more effectively. But you usually will see me with a long tail when it comes to the lazy mouse. Then I'll just pivot. Sometimes I mess up, like right meow. Okay. Yeah, those are ugly. So, should have started in here. Yeah, that's better. Go. Just making these lines. No, we're gonna live with this one. I want to see if I can kind of. No, let's not do that. Let's look bad. Can't make up my mind. Come up this way. Like I said before, it's okay too if you end up kind of repeating a stroke or trying something new. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Come in here real quick. Send these out a little bit. Get them tucked in just a little bit. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and save as, because you never know. All right, it's just not liking it. I'm probably pushing it too hard. But we saved it, so we don't have to redo that work for a third time. All right. You know what they say about insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So we're going to change our pivot, our method a bit. And that's okay. What we're going to do is actually kind of push it a little bit more. So let's grab this. And what I was planning on doing anyway was grabbing the damn standard brush and carving each one a little bit deeper, and then we're going to use the inflate brush to give that detail. So let's go really strong with that. Focal shift, but then draw size, we're going to go down a little bit more. And then let's turn on our stroke, lazy mouse, kick that up. And I like a really strong lazy mouse. This is going to, we're going to end up inflating this back to itself. It's going to give us even more depth and texture. So we're going to be cutting a little bit stronger than we're used to. But like I said, that's going to print better. So all that's going to work. Boom. I actually find that most of the time when I'm detailing, I push things pretty hard. Okay. I think the song sounds super familiar because I stream with it a lot, but I was like, please tell me the copyright stuff is turned on appropriately. And I believe it is, so. I think I listen to Pretzel Rocks more than I listen to Spotify. So... Life as a streamer. Yes, History Brush does work across different tools, but if the different tools don't have the same topology, then you'll end up kind of, projecting something that you don't want. But yeah, notice if I make the state here and then I go over here, there's a red bar. That red bar is indicating that history is being marked somewhere else. So yes, you can go across subtools for sure. Yeah. So that being said, in theory, yes, I could. So you said, does History Brush work differently with subtools? So you could get a previous version and then mark it. Yeah, again, you just kind of... You don't really want to... Like I said, if the mesh is completely different, like if I were to duplicate this and then do some other stuff and then end up loving it, I could just project history or project all on those two objects and it'll be fine. But if I do a marking, I can't just project it to his pants. You know what I mean? So the mesh has to be identical for that to work correctly. I'm sure there are tricks and stuff that other artists might have come across, but on paper, that won't work as clean as you think. But with morph targets, you can switch and kind of restore that history. Morph target kind of works as like a base history state, just understanding where that subtool's current mesh state was at before you altered it, and you can always switch back and forth to kind of cleanse your palette. But when it comes to project history, it's best practice to have it near identical in the mesh. Yeah, of course. I wasn't sure if the subdivision wasn't sure that the subdivision you would have had on the previous version would be an issue, but there's always projection. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, what I'm thinking is that I'm just taxing ZBrush a little too hard. Sometimes it's user error, and in this case, I think it's my fault because we did it fine on the other belt, but we're already at 13 million. That subtool in itself is like up to 2.5. So I'm thinking I'm personally making it work harder than it needs to. So I'm okay with doing it this way too, because this calms me. Like I was saying earlier, I'm a very I really love just like doing it all by hand anyway. So now what we're going to do is, speaking of which, is I'm going to pick a inflate brush. And we're going to lightly inflate it with a decent sized brush. Kind of bring some of this closer together. So it's going to give me a little bit cleaner of a look and cover up some of these not so pretty lines. But this gives me some good depth, and the print is going to look phenomenal. And it's also going to give some imperfections that I think is going to look really, really well. So when I merge this all and weld it together, I think it's gonna come out great. What's up, Lee Gibbons? How you doing? You find a way so all works well in the end. Exactly. Yep. And that's half the battle, you know. If I were to describe my day-to-day job, I would say I sculpt 35% of the time, troubleshoot 50% of the time, and the rest is just planning and execution. How we go about it. And a lot of times you're going to do something and you're like, that's not working out. You know what's funny is you're going to do something that you've done 100 times in ZBrush or done 100 times in general. And then you go to do it again for the 101st time, and it's going to tell you, nope, not going to work that way. So just kind of learn to pivot. And actually, that's what I love about showing these bigger projects is because you guys get to see all that. You get to be like, all right, how's he going to fix that? What's his approach? Because we all do it differently. And I used to classify myself as not a super technical artist, but then I quickly discovered and had a few close friends to tell me I was kind of full of it because I did a lot of technical stuff. But my go-to is how can I do this by hand because I just like how it looks. And that's part of my style. Is just how can I do it by hand, you know? And that's why you usually see me do it that way. I think too, a lot of it is like when I was learning how to sculpt, I would watch, and I still do to this day. I will load up traditional sculptors on YouTube, and I will watch them piece things together, and it's super fascinating because they don't get a Control Z, but I do. But I love how they work. If I had a space, I would probably play with clay too, but I don't have a big enough space for the type of projects I'd want to do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm liking that. Not always smooth sailing, exactly. Just work with it. Yep. Absolutely. All right. I almost got this belt done, did. Go. Yeah, that's looking good. Now I'm just going to kind of play with this a little bit, make it look like it's actually folded correctly. This is definitely a fake it till you make it type scenario where I didn't feel like this is a very complicated knot in real life. It's called the cookie knot. And it definitely has its pros and cons. So doing it in ZBrush would have not... like tying the knot itself would have not worked as well as I wanted to. But that's okay. Now we're going to go ahead and kind of do a little bit of this line. We'll take the move brush, right? And we'll just make that line visible. Like that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and isolate this guy. That in and that out. That's going to look really good. Go back to V1. There we go. Nice. I like that. All the little, it's just all the little details. Little things. Go. Okay. And now we're not going to see really all that much of his other belt, but we're going to see enough. So let's go ahead and actually do ourselves a favor. Turn off this paint. Let's save it real fast. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some stitching in some spots that we can see, but we're not going to do stitching everywhere because it doesn't matter. Hey, good morning. Is there a way to bring animation with the base mesh into ZBrush? Suppose I want to bring a base mesh with pose animation. Okay, I don't work with a lot of animated files, but that being said, I believe you can export a pose out of DAZ and bring it into ZBrush. I don't know if I'm pretty sure you cannot bring in the whole animation and choose the pose in ZBrush, but I'm pretty certain you pick something with DAZ and then you can save that animation out and then you can bring that into ZBrush. I don't work with it a whole lot, so I don't know. Smokey J says DAZ has Go Z, so if that's the case, then that would be the way to do it for sure. Got to go back to cooking. Have a great stream. Thanks, Ryan. As long as you don't break the mesh, you can go back and forth. There you go. Yeah. So that would be it. With DAZ, you'll be able to keep the UVs and stuff intact. So when you send that over, you'll be able to work with that pretty well. So just don't, bringing something over like that, you're not going to want to really ZBrush unless you have no need for full animation. So thanks, Smokey J. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't work with it much, so I can't. Hard to say. I wish I could just know everything. Then I can always answer your question. Why can't I know everything? Working on it. Okay. Yeah, that should be pretty good there. Okay. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and just split hidden. Keep that detail as much as possible. There we go. Cool. And this is the only one we're going to see the most of. So we're going to go ahead and go to dynamic and apply. And then again, we're going to bring that up to a decent resolution. Again, with the stitch brush, we do have to go pretty high, but I'm okay with that. I don't mind because then we can always decimate it when we're done and call it a day. Okay. And we're going to go back to the stitch brush. You can turn off symmetry because I don't really need it. But we are going to match stitch. That's looking pretty good. Gonna put 4 of these lines down. Again, you only want to detail where you're going to see this stuff. So we're going to go right here in the front. Not worry too much about the rest. No problem. Dude, super appreciate that. All right, gotta go. Looking great. Have a great rest of your day. You too. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for the awesome questions. Always a pleasure to have you guys in here. Okay, let's grab our chisel brush. Gonna throw down this line real quick and immediately know that that is way too strong. And put that down and make sure that that's looking close. All right, it's a little big. There we go. And we're just gonna go ahead and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit 1 on the keyboard a couple times to make that slightly bigger. 1 on the keyboard is the natural shortcut to repeat the action that you just did. And sometimes that's easier than getting it all. And we only really need this side right here. It's true. You can do blend shapes. Yes. I don't work with them typically enough to speak on the matter. So, but I have seen Paul DC work with blend shapes. In fact, I think he even has a blend shape tutorial on YouTube. If you just type in ZBrush blend shapes, you should find something. Yes, I could. I was explaining earlier, Logan, that I actually like to create details by hand, and that's what you're watching. Perfect. Yeah, we're not going to see that, so this is working out great. Yeah, like I was explaining earlier, if you weren't in, I find comfort in doing hand details, and it's just calming to me. That's what I typically do. Gives me the results I want. So, Miles Morales once said, it's a choice. Seems like you have tons of ZBrush, tons of brushes. I do actually. Yeah, I have a lot of brushes. I would say right about. I've only installed. This is only like a small percentage. So half of the brushes here are all default. Wow, that was a weird sentence. Half the brushes here are default, and then I have the Orbs Cracked brushes, and then I have the Sakaki SK brushes that I installed purposely in ZBrush. But then I have XMD, and I have a bunch of other brushes that I've bought that I'll pull out from time to time. Okay, now we're going to close these cuts up a little bit more, give them that kind of inflate depth feel. Yeah, and we're only working with what we can see. Not too worried about everything else, but that little bit of detail is going to shine through. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and just kind of back here for a second. We're going to detail his gi next. Hey, what's up, James? How you doing? I'm doing really good. Speaking of that, repeat last action button. Is it annoying that it repeats the camera rotation even if it's not an action itself? Yeah, it can be. That's because the way ZBrush operates is that this is considered a stroke, and it's always repeating that last stroke. So yeah, I could see how that could be a little bit of a nuisance, but yeah, you just kind of get into that habit of like you make your line and then you just draw one and then you're good. But yeah, it took a little bit to get used to. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull up my reference. Where are you, reference? There it is. All right, so we got the belt built. We'll deal with the stitching part later. I'm kind of liking it the way it is plain. I'm not quite sure I want to do any real stitching yet. That'll be very, very specific where I'll build an alpha. But what I want to focus in on now is this piece right here. It's torn and it's right there. So we're going to kind of get that brought up a little bit. So I'll probably, we can either use thick skin for that or we can do a extract. But I'm thinking thick skin will give me exactly what I need because it's going to then be frayed and torn up. So having multiple pieces will cause conflict or just give us, not conflict, it'll just have me work a little harder. So, and I just kind of want to have that detail there. So we're going to get that built in because then it's going to be frayed with the rest of this. So that being said, let's actually focus on thick skin, I think. So let's go ahead and save this out. I'm thinking just thick skin. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. I think we'll work with thick skin. But what we're going to do is, I think I'm going to just take the mask lasso. I'm going to mask off what I want to affect. Like that. Sharpen that. Turn thick skin on. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Get the clay buildup brush. Let's see. That's a bit much. So let's tone that down. You know what? Actually, the resolution itself is a little low. I'm actually going to increase that. Put that in. Then let's go ahead. Yeah. Let's do 6. There we go. How's that look? We'll add the stitching and stuff to it as well. Okay, that's just cutting in a little bit there. Let's back this up and let's actually go to, so it's pretty thin. So we want to turn on backface mask. So if we go to brush, auto masking, and then backface, that'll help us a bit more. Yeah, there we go. That's a bit more controlled. That'll give us a little bit more detail there. There we go. Do I think there are more job opportunities for new people who want to learn to sculpt in 3D? Do you mean like, is there more opportunities if you learn how to sculpt in 3D in the industry, or want to make sure, like, do I think there are more job opportunities for new people who want to learn? I think opportunities are presenting themselves a lot more often because there's a lot more studios that are doing remote work. But yeah, could you rephrase your question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, because the way I'm reading it is making it seem like, oh, if are there job opportunities for new people to come in and learn how to sculpt? Like, usually you're hired as a sculptor, so I'm reading it as, are there new jobs that will teach me how to sculpt? And the answer would be no at the moment. So could you rephrase it? I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. Not to make it super complex, so sorry. Turn off thick skin for a second. Realize that this is not as thick as I want it to be. But what I will say is there are a lot more opportunities every single day. There are more studios popping up. There are more companies that are willing to hire people who can showcase that they can sculpt and work with new blood, so to speak. So, I mean, there's always opportunities. It's just a matter of where to look. You know what I mean? So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, if you could rephrase it, I just want to make sure I understand it right. The thick skin is actually giving me what I want because it caps me on how much that stitching or that raised area is going to be. So this is going to be fine. Move that out just a little bit so it's not so rough. Turn off thick skin. And then we can emphasize this a little bit more. What I'll do is I'll come in here. And I'll like kind of cut a crease spot there. Kind of give that a little bit more emphasis. And then let's get that stitch brush. Turn that mRGB color off. That's a little low res, so let's up it a bit. Add in 3 for this. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And then we're going to try to do our best to repeat that right here. Bump that up a bit. Such. Then let's turn on that thick skin. We knew that 6 was a good number. For that raised surface area. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Get that stitch brush back. Try to match what we did too much. That's probably better. Hey, what's up, Talden? How you doing? One, 2, and 3. There we go. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm doing well. Can't complain much. Wouldn't do me any good, right? But no, I'm doing well. Doing really well. I go ahead and emphasize this spot right here. Getting that a little bit in there. There we go. Starting to look a little bit better. It's coming to life a bit more. Something I'm noticing right now is that this is not pulled out enough. Doing okay? Yep. All right. Okay, cool. And we'll do the same here one more time. I'm actually going to use this little bit as a this little slash right here to kind of block that off. Make it seem like it got torn there, which is always going to be fun. Do 6. And let's bring that clay buildup brush. Boom. Boom. Go. Turn that thick skin off. Come in here with that ZBrush. Oop. That was way too big. I think we're at somewhere around 10. Yeah, that looks right. Draws out real nice and easy, and that's going to be helpful. All right, 7-11. That's perfect timing. All right, let's add some holes into his Dobok or ski. Save it. So let's see real quick. Let's look at his body and figure out. So we have no detail on his legs whatsoever, which means that if I tear it enough, we're going to have to detail his legs. Oh, no. So I'm thinking, let's look at my reference. That's always important. When in doubt, go to the reference. So, aha, we got a tear right here. Boom, perfect. We got a tear here. Kind of looks like there's a tear here. So it means we'll have to buff up and match his legs a bit. So let's add a couple good-sized tears. Usually we're used to seeing it clean like this, but we are shredding it a bit. So we can definitely tear this up a bit more. And then we'll go from there. I almost want to redo his hair. The more I look at this and I see mine, I chose a different path. I may want to change his hair a bit. Yeah, we got some tearing. Okay, so let's add 1, maybe 2 good tears. But I don't want to overdo it. I think this is going to be too much. And then I'll have to texture his legs. So that's a good start. So let's get that done. Hey there, can you explain the clip curve tool with mask real quick? Absolutely, we could definitely do that. That's right, Buffalo. Redo his hair, it thickens. Yeah, it's always gonna be the thing. The rabbit hole is never ending. Just like, but it's good to have this option. So let's do the tear, and then let me think about the hair. But let's do the clip curve stuff. All right, clip curve time. First things first, we're gonna stamp our new detail right here. Bloop. Okay. Let's go ahead and save this. And I'm gonna go ahead and just I'm gonna put that here like this. Hit this, say switch, and then let's grab a cylinder real fast. Boom. Nope, make polymesh 3D. Okay. So clip curve. Clip curve is a really fun tool. Boop, 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 boop. So we have clip curve. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You're talking about... So with clip curve, for those of you who may not know what it is, clip curve, all it's really doing is it's a tool that allows you to kind of smash your topology. So with clip curve, if let's say I go ahead and use it, when you draw it out, you notice there's a bit of a shadow that's happening. So that's the side that's going to get smushed. Okay. So when you clip curve normally, it's just taking that geo and it's compressing it down really hard. And it's pretty destructive, but it's a good way to just clip your topology when you just need to like shove something down. Now, that being said, every tool does things a little different when you utilize clip curve with some sort of feature. Now, you say clip curve with mask real quick. Let me just check something real fast to make sure. Boom. Make sure I'm getting the right tool. Unless you mean, do you mean mask curve? I'm just kind of curious. Okay. But at this point right now, we're just talking about clip curve. So with clip curve, with it, is this what you mean? I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. When I use clip curve and masking, nothing happens. So that's not going to do anything real quick. But there is a tool that does stuff with masking, and that is slice curve. Slice curve, when something is masked, will actually add another edge loop. So can you clarify real fast before we go any further, Heisen? Because clip curve and masking doesn't do anything, and I don't see a clip curve with mask feature brush. So I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. There are some really cool clip curve features. I mean, mask part of OVJ. Okay, so when you mask part of when you mask something, like you mask part of this, and then you use clip curve, it's going to, that's slice curve. When you use clip curve, it's going to just ignore that mask, and it gets pushed up here in the middle. So when you mask something and then use clip curve, it's just going to crush it up to that mask, and then it's going to try its best to clip curve beyond it, but it's not going to, and it's just going to be very destructive. So clip curve with mask, you definitely want to avoid that if possible. I wouldn't recommend doing it. Clip curve kind of does a good job. Now, if you want to lessen your clip curve, maybe you're like, hey, with clip curve, I'm just like, I want to do a little bit, but I don't want this effect. Then at the very top, if you're defaulted on ZBrush, you should have your Z intensity, and notice how your clip curve goes 100%. So you could slow that intensity down, which will give you a different effect, which is really cool. Or you can hold the space bar, clip curve, and then hit the space bar, and then you could do a B radius, and that's going to do a very interesting effect where it's going to clip kind of in the center and kind of squish it. You can also do clip curve by polygroup, which will not only clip it, but it will cause your polygroup to change when you clip that. So then you can isolate that feature a little bit better, which is pretty cool. But if you want to change the Z intensity and you don't have this feature up here, hold the space bar, then hold shift control, and then you can adjust the intensity from that as well. So that would be the easiest way to do it. But masking with clip curve doesn't really help you. But like I mentioned earlier, and let's quickly just do ourselves a favor and let's just ZRemesh the sphere real fast so we have very low topology. So now if you have something like this and you mask it and you pull up slice curve will try its best to add in an edge loop with it being masked versus just slicing it and causing a different polygroup, which that could be effective if you're doing some, you know, more Z modeler intense work. So like, let's make this a cube, for example. I'm just going to hit the gizmo real fast, turn this on and go to polygroup here. let's say I'm working with this and I want to add an edge loop specifically across here, and I mask this off real fast, Slice Curve will let me do that really easily. I can add very specific sections, and then I can work with that section and maybe pull that out. So, and then let's say I want to add a couple here, mask that, I can go boom, there's a couple. Like, so it's almost even faster at that point if you wanted to just, where if you slice it, it's actually going to cut it instead of adding. So that's, so with Slice Curve, masking has some cool features, but with Clip Curve, masking doesn't really work. So hopefully that answered your question. But yeah, that's all it's going to do. It's just going to shove back that topology and give you something weird. Okay. I want to redo his hair. Okay, let me show you how to do holes real quick. I want to redo his hair. I'm already like, ah! Hey, not a problem. Absolutely. Okay, let's actually cut a hole here real fast. And then I think I'm going to redo his hair this week at some point. I think that's going to be me. Maybe I'm not going to redo his hair. I'm going to give myself a second option, which is different. I really like this option, but I'm feeling like I can do something a little bit different and a little bit better. And that's okay. That's how we grow as artists. So I'm going to probably do something a little bit more symmetrical, but then we'll break it asymmetrical. This right here, I'm just not in love with it. Seeing your amazing work as someone new to ZBrush. First off, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask you if you still watch tutorials, time lapses from other artists. Short answer, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. But the long answer. So short answer is yes, absolutely. I still go over tutorials. I see what everybody's doing. The long answer and the reasons why I do that. One, I'm always willing to learn. I am somebody who I know I'm not at the top of my game, A, and B, I know I still have so much to learn, and C, there's so many artists out there that not looking at what they're doing could actually hurt me instead of help me. You know what I mean? So it's beneficial almost to go through and see what's going on. But here's the real difference, and here's what you'll learn happens over time. I've been doing this for over 6 years, so I have a lot of experience behind me. And while there are many artists who have fewer years or more years, at the end of the day, I know what I'm looking for. So when I look at a tutorial, it's not necessarily how do I do this one specific thing. It's more of like getting ideas on how somebody else would approach it, and then I kind of go off on my own. Now, if it's something I know nothing about, like let's for example say I don't work with fiber mesh much. I know enough about fiber mesh to get the results that I want. But if I really wanted to dive deep into fiber mesh, I'm going to see how other artists use it, and then I'm going to try to adapt that into my workflow. I'm not going to be trying to follow that artist and how they do it specifically the way they do it. It's just not helpful because I know how I work and I have that experience behind me, so I can take their ideas and their tips and I can adopt the idea of it a little bit faster than somebody who's trying to learn fresh out the gate and has never done it before. So while I'm still, I look up tutorials when I have questions, but I also tend to try to figure it out first instead of just like, how do I do this thing? Because again, that experience speaks volumes over time, in which the more you adapt your own workflows and you work through those processes, the more you'll realize that you don't necessarily need to look something up. You just need to be pointed in the right direction, and then you take over yourself. So it's all about perspective at that point. So yeah, time to time, I love popping into the ZBrush master classroom. I love checking out Ask ZBrush videos because there's still so much to know. And then I love checking out, like, anytime Raf Grassetti or Daniel Bell loads up a new video, I'm like, what did you do? How did you do that? So, yo, Ian, whoa, what's up, Lee? What is your channel on Discord for questions regarding the Street Fighter theme challenge? So, great question, Lee. So yeah, when you what's your Discord channel and Discord record questions regarding? So yeah, so if you pop over to collaborative artistry and go to additional questions, it's more of like if you're not sure of maybe something with the challenge itself that you're curious about, so you can go ahead and ask your questions here. So yeah, just pop over there and ask any additional questions. It's really like if you check the issue themes and kind of see the rules and regulations, which we also have rules here, kind of just gives you guidelines. It's nothing too strict. Just keep it, you know, respectful. But yeah, that's just if you have a question on something I didn't really think of. And the challenge itself is running until August, so you guys have plenty of time if you want to pick a character. Just pop on over on the Discord on that side. Let me share a link to that one more time so you guys have it. Oop. You can pop over and go through there. Hi, absolutely great sculpture, great job. Thank you so much. We are, I am venturing to say we are only about 50% through with this sculpt, so we got some more to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and real fast. Lee, did that answer your question, by the way? I want to make sure. But let's do some cuts. Some cutty cuts. I'm gonna go to curve AccuCurve, and I'm gonna make this a little bit pointy. All right. Okay. So what we're gonna do something a little unique here. I want to preserve these edges. Okay, I know what I'm gonna do. All right, first off, let's get these cuts going. So first things first, what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna make some slashes. So we're gonna take the mask pen. Let's go ahead and just hide the fill for a second. And we're gonna be masking an area in which we want to kind of cut out, and then we're gonna fold that spot up. So let's actually go to stroke, lazy mouse, turn that bad boy up a bit. So I'm just going to mask the section that I actually want to remove and cut, and then I'm going to do the rest by flipping up the thing itself. So let's actually add a cut right here. So we'll do some leg anatomy. Might do it off stream because I'm not going to have time to get to the anatomy itself today, but come through and add some gouges. So these will be the sections that we ultimately just delete. Awesome. Perfectly. Not a problem, dude. Okay. I think that'll be good enough. Maybe one more? Like, don't add too many. We got 4 ready. Let's go with 5. Let's make it an even number. See how many of you got that. 5 makes it an even number. I can't even with myself. Why are you the way that you are? Okay. Now what we're going to do, so we're just making holes in this bad boy, right? So let's put these lines back on. Nah, let's turn those lines back off. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control W. A little Control W. All right. Gives me those spots. Now these spots here. Oh, you know what? This looks identical to the one up there. What are you? Go ahead and wipe that one off, and let's do this one. There you go. Variety is the spice of life, so let's make sure we get that clean. Sharpen that up. There we go. It's going to look a little bit better, maybe, possibly. We never know. Actually, you know what? Go right here. I do want to follow the way pants would actually do its thing, so... There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Control W. All right. Oh, that already looks cool. We haven't even done anything. All right, so let's go ahead and delete hidden on that. Now, mind you, this is single-sided geometry. If you were to go down to display properties, I have double turned on. When I work with clothing, typically I do not work with multiple with thicker geometry. I work with single-sided geometry, not double-sided geometry. So if you're turning double on, this is, if you're coming in right now and you're like, oh, that's the easiest way to make holes, great, because we're just going to ZBrush, then we're going to project history. But if you have thickness to your mesh, then it's not going to work the same. Then you have to worry about both sides of the mesh. So in this case, I am working with single-sided geometry, and that's just wanted to clarify why this will be this way. So we'll just turn double off so you can see it. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and control state history right on the top by hitting control, tapping that spot like we've done a few times. All right. And now we're going to go through. I'm going to go ahead and turn the line back on. Now, what's really cool is we can kind of get the sense of what topology density we have. Right now we're working at something under 500,000 polys, so that's pretty good. But what I'm thinking before we do anything is I just kind of want to know, okay, it's not too dense. With this picker with with Dynamesh, I don't always use it for Dynamesh. And what I mean is I kind of just see how dense it is, because I know how big my file is. But sometimes when your lines are this condensed, I work with Dynamesh enough to know how low res or high res that would be. So sometimes I will just pop up, grab picker, and just see what the thickest spot is. So if I were to Dynamesh, I would be able to kind of get a sense of the file. That's just a little nuanced thing, not really a tip. Just me and my weirdness. But now what we're going to do is we're going to probably try to kick this down. We're going to keep groups, keep creases. In fact, what I also want to do is I want to detect edges. So I'm going to go to geometry, ZRemesher. I'm going to detect edges, but we don't have any creases, and we don't have any groups. Fine. In fact, actually, let's Control Z for a second. What I want to do is actually smooth these groups up a little bit more before we fully delete them. So I'm going to go to deformation and polish by groups, and that's going to kind of give me a smoother line. Now we can go ahead and delete that. So I just Controlled Z, got those back. Now we're going to ZRemesh by detecting edges, keeping groups, just so we can turn the smooth groups down. If you look right here, if keep groups is off, smooth groups is always defaulted to being off. But when you turn keep groups on, smooth groups is always at 1. So you usually get shrinkage when you use ZRemesher. So a real cool trick to not get a lot of smoothing happening to your mesh is, even if you only have one polygroup on, turn keep groups on, then take that smooth groups down to 0, and your mesh won't shrink as much. It'll still shrink because you're lessening the topology, but it won't shrink as much, preserving more of your shape. That's a little thing I do. So turn that on, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll say 25 and give it a shot. Hold on. Escape. Save this. You've been hurt before. All right, now how to do that. Always save before you start making crazy changes. There we go. So we got a little less than 30 minutes left. If you guys have any more great questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll answer them as best I can. In the meantime, I've really just been enjoying hanging out with you guys, so it's been great. Hey, Lee, for the Street Fighter themed final submission, should it be delivered? Can we use other programs, multiple images, turntables, etc.? Is it all still open? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let me actually real quick explain what that was. So just recap real quick. Everybody, if you join my Discord, anybody who is in there can automatically join this thing. What we're doing is we are creating themed art books that you could submit to. So you can create following the themes regulations. So it's not really a contest. It's more of just like a collaborative Discord thing. So you can basically come on in and join the theme, pick a character, sculpt it to the best of your ability, and sculpt in your style. And then you're going to submit it, in two ways. Submit the final render for your own spot, because each artist will get their own page. It is just going to be your artwork and your name, and then you can even share your socials. And then what we're doing for this one in particular is we're also going to be doing a giant banner. So what you could do, Lee, is you're going to submit 2 files. You can render in anything. You don't have to stay in ZBrush. It can literally be sculpted in Blender as far as I care. Doesn't matter. Whatever you do, when you're done with it, wherever you render it, render a final image the way you're happy with it. And then also for the big banner, just go ahead and submit a transparent background of just the character. And then it doesn't matter the pose either, just the character. And then we're gonna go ahead and kit bash that all together and have a background built. And then they're all gonna be set in that theme. So it's gonna be really, really cool. So yeah, feel free to render in what sculpt, whatever. It's totally fine. All right, that actually did really, really good. I'm really happy with that. Kept a lot of this going. I'm gonna go ahead and just go in half for a second. Okay, perfect. Boom, holes. Holes and close. Now, what I am thinking we're gonna do here, real quick, is I'm going to subdivide a few times, and we're gonna go ahead and project history. Boom, boom. And then we're going to go ahead and fill color with the proper color. Sometimes with holes, it doesn't project the way you want it to, so you have to kind of finagle that. Now what we're going to do here, this is going to be super fun, is I'm going to go ahead and mask section right here. Yes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and mask that. We're going to flip where we don't need it. Right there. Look at this. We're going to bend this up. Lower the topology a bit. Oh. We'll have to figure out the printing aspect of it, but for right now, it's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, Lee, hopefully that answers your question, buddy. We're just going to be doing a big... So you'll be doing two submissions. We'll when we get closer to it, which will be August. Right now, you know, once you're ready with your sculpt, go ahead and, you know, if you have any more questions like that, but we'll get a little bit more info as we get closer to August as well. There we go. All right. So we're gonna have to do some more details in the legs. But yeah, this is doing it. Doing the thing we needed to do. There we go. Open some of these up. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Got about 20 minutes left. Oh, that should be fine, actually. How did I make those cuts in his pants? I missed it. Just cut the just the cut tool. No, okay. So I'll go over it one more time. No problem. So what I did, let's actually save it. Okay. I can go back in history. So what I did. Okay. So what I did first things first was I went through and I masked out some spots that I wanted to cut. Now this is single-sided geometry, so if I were to go to display properties and turn double off, you can see here that that in itself is just single-sided geometry. So I masked off what I wanted, and then I went ahead and did Control W to give me different poly groups. And then from there, I went to deformation and polished by groups, giving me something more like this. Then I went ahead and isolated the single-sided main pant. So now I have all these in separate pieces. Went ahead and deleted hidden. I masked some. I marked my history state. And then from here, I went to geometry, ZBrush, keep groups, detect edges, and turn smooth groups down to 0. And then I picked something more like 25. And then did the ZBrush. Yep, delete hidden. Yep. Which, if you want to be able to find that, it's under geometry, modify topology, and delete hidden. Yeah, delete hidden is such a great feature. Now I just saved it, so let's go ahead and reload. But yeah, so that's it. So once I deleted hidden, then from there, I went ahead, ZBrushed it. And detect edges, got a little bit cleaner topology. Not the world's greatest, but enough to work with. And then now I'm just kind of refining those. But now I'm going to need to buff up his legs a bit because he's a little top heavy. So I wasn't going to tear his pants before, but it's looking so much cooler already. So we'll end up detailing those as well. But because we're going to be printing, we definitely need some thickness to his outfits and such. So that's what we'll be working on right now. So we're going to stick with those tears. But before we do, I want to actually add a couple little details here and there to his top part. And then more than likely, it's going to be a lot of repeating. What I will do real fast, so you guys can get a bit more sense of this, we're actually going to create some seams here real quick. So let's do that. Let's go to... Yeah, let's go ahead and do dam standard. I'm going to go ahead and just create a little spot here. We're going to go focal shift pretty hard. Let's create some seams down his pants. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and adjust last to make those seams a little bit more, a little deeper. And then you guys know what's happening next. We're going to go ahead and do an inflate. Really going to push that in. Just remember when you're using delete hidden that you can't do it with any type of subdivision. So notice that I had to delete my subdivision before I did all of that extra work. So just keep that in mind. But delete hidden, such a really cool feature. Gonna go ahead and let's select lasso. So I can work on this seam right here. Boom. Yeah. Almost like I did that on purpose. All right. Got a little bit of a tear. That's going to be fine. That's going to work out well. Amazing what a couple seams will do to your work. Automatically ties the whole room together. Go. Right. Yeah, it's been a lot better. I'm liking that. Okay, you know what I'm going to do as well? I'm going to inflate this a bit. I feel like his legs are a little skinny, so I'm not going to just screw it. I'm going to hold control and isolate right over this inflate brush. I'm going to kind of inflate that a bit. Going to make it just a bit thicker. Not much, but just enough. Oh, yeah. And then we want to show a little bit more power. I'm actually going to mass lasso. Layer this out a little bit. There, that's a little bit better. Yeah, that's better. What I'm talking about. Right there. Go. I think there's a little bit more belt showing than I thought, so I may go through and detail some of the other spots too, but I'll do that off stream if I do it. See exactly how much shows. Okay. All right. Okay, we're gonna block out one more set of hair real quick because I'm feeling like I want to see him in a little bit different light. So we're gonna go ahead and save this. And then here's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna show you kind of my thought process. I'm gonna make a new folder and I'm gonna type this kin masters. Capitalize everything. That's proper masters. We'll call this main build. Okay. I'm going to take... Actually, I'm going to cancel this real quick. I'm going to go ahead in this folder section. Master sculpt. Block out. Now I'm going to take all of this stuff right here. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to put this in its own folder. Now I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this new direction. Okay. Now when I save this, I'm going to go into here. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this 0_. Then I'm going to put this, I'm going to rename this 1_. That keeps it in order for me. I'll even put this in there too. And we'll even put that in there too. Right? So now when I save this, I can go under the new direction. And at this point, we should actually change the name. Masters _ final pose 01. Okay. Now, a lot of what's going on with the hair, I do like. As in, like, I really like the bangs. I'm going to go ahead and split hidden on this and keep all the bangs together. Go ahead and merge down. There we go. Okay. Let's look at the concept one more time. And he has a much tighter braid at the top. So this hair flows and it stops almost at the base of his neck, right at where his trapezius would start, and then his hair flows out. So let's give that a go. Hey, Raytheon Studios, what's happening? Morning. To you, sir? We're actually going to be signing off here in a few minutes. But it's always awesome to have you here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to you know what? Let's load a brush. So a couple hair brushes that I like to use that I've showcased a few times before, but you could just Google it real quick if you want. Is if you, I like to use the mag hair, the clump and the detail. Those are really good blackout brushes. Okay, let's actually turn that history off. Make sure we have the right color in there. We're going to go ahead and drag this down. Let's actually adjust the depth. Those go to depth. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm digging that. Turn smooth, or let's turn dynamic subdivisions on. Just see if we can block this out real fast, and if we end up liking it. If we don't, we have that other hair. I'm actually gonna go ahead and kind of mask this section off for a second, smooth that down. Let's actually go ahead and do ourselves a favor. Split hidden. For this, I'm actually gonna minimize the first hair. Let's take these bangs. Let's duplicate these bangs. Let's pop it up. Hide this. Go to new group. Call this hair 2. Call this new. It's in there. Turn that on. Let's see if we can get something we like. Had to go to a wedding yesterday, so many hours are all out of whack. Hey, no worries. I promise was not giving you a hard time. I'm always happy to have you here when you can. But man, hopefully the wedding was fun. That's always good. I just wanted to make sure you knew, like, I hate for people to be like, hey, how you doing? Like, hi, I'm going. Bye, sucker. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, you met where I stood. Go ahead and scale this down a bit. There we go. Now with this hair tie here, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. And then with these braids, I'm going to also Control-Shift-D, duplicate that. Okay. And then what I'm going to do to just ease my mind for a second, let's just save that real fast, is I'm just going to go to Z plugin real fast, go to T-pose mesh, bring everything over, and then I'm just going to move that braid and ribbon on over to the right spot because it's just going to be way easier to do it this way. There you go. Take this guy right here. Actually, yeah, let's move it off symmetry for a second. Let's kind of scale that down. Kind of flap that right there. Sometimes it's really easy to just kind of manipulate what you need. There we go. That's fine. Let's go ahead and send it back. Hey, what's up, B? How you doing? Like, go through and make its magic. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Just like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that mag hair clump. And we're going to go ahead and kind of sculpt a new direction. It's actually much bigger than that. Ooh, that's crazy. That's crazy talk right there. You know what am I even doing? Why are we even doing it that way? That's a good question, sir. I'm gonna go ahead and just Control-Shift-D. That's why you did it that way. Okay. That's fine. So we're going to come here real fast. Sometimes if you want, what we can do is let's go up to curve. And then let's go as a line. Let's sculpt something like that. A little bit bigger. There we go. A little bit bigger. Okay. So actually, let's adjust this curve. Let's go to fall off. Actually make this a little bit more. Oops. Go to size. Let's reset that. Let's flip it. Come on down. So we get a little bit more of like this happening. Stroke, really bring that flare up. Like that. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. What I'm talking about. Go ahead and delete hidden. Okay, we got a couple minutes and then I'm gonna leave. Hey, what's going on? Off to bed, have a great night. Nice, have a great night. Alston here. Sluggish as hell, Mom made me feast for Easter and I can't move anymore. Pineapple ham is dangerous. Nice, nice. We're just kind of blocking out a new hair idea that I might play with a bit more. Okay, now that we have this happening here, let's go to a bend curve. Actually pull this up a bit. Yeah. Ah, there we go. That's looking a bit better. Go ahead and just accept that slight curve adjustment. Bend curve. Accept. Perfect. Mask off this section here. Scale that down a bit. Working at like 100 miles an hour for some reason. There we go. I think this will actually be a little bit more what I'm looking for. But we'll see. Let's kind of make that pointy a bit. Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit more of what I want. We'll have a couple hairstyles to choose from, which is always good to have options, you know? And this is why I love sculpting, because it's just the ability to inherently play with it. Now, okay, notice this. I deleted hidden and somehow deleted all this mesh. Well, that's not fun. So I'm actually going to go to turn off double. And we're going to go to Z modeler. Let's go ahead and just do ourselves a favor. And we're going to stitch this back together. Stitch. No. Sorry. Go over that point. Stitch 2 points. Come over this edge, insert. Let's stitch these points back together. Somehow this got split when we didn't want it to. Happens. Gonna call it for the night. Hopefully this live stream was helpful for a lot of you guys, and if so, please just feel free to always, like that little video. Do that thing. But just let me know. It's always helpful to get feedback. There we go. We're stitching these 2 points together. That should help clean up that god-awful mess that happened to me. There we go. Perfect. All right. I'm thinking, honestly, this is going to be a much better solution. We'll play around with that a bit more. What I'm going to do is go to brush. Let's go to auto masking backface. Backface with the move brush is super powerful. Really helps you thicken stuff up without having to worry about ruining too much. And you can turn that backface now. So yeah, you know what? I'm thinking that might be a direction we go to. Sit on that for a minute and then maybe give it a little bit of a change. So we have options. Worst case scenario is we end up just keeping this hair. And I like this hair. This hair is not bad. I'm just thinking we can either go here or we can go here. You got choices. All right, that's going to be it for the day, guys. Let's go ahead and save this real fast. I'll finish that hair up later. It's 8:03, so thank you all for being here. And let's see. Hi, can you please tell me the best material to use in ZBrush to convey the feel of glass? Glass is a little bit difficult, but here, let me send you to a video that will break it down a little bit more in depth for you, because it's a little bit of transparency stuff. Because there's not a default glass material in ZBrush. So ZBrush, but there is a how to, like, how this is made type series ZBrush does. So let's see. And there was a coffee maker tutorial in which Paul Gabry actually goes over that a little bit more in depth. So I would recommend try, let's see here. I would actually say skip to like 2 hours, 20 minutes. And that will really help you out. That should give you a little bit better of an idea. It's a little bit more in process than just saying go to this material, because if you go here, there's really not a default for that. So follow that. Like I said, about 2 hours, 20 minutes. That should help you out. Yay! Not a problem. All right, guys, that is it for the day. Thank you guys so very much, and I will see you all later. Talk to you guys later. Boom, boom, boom. Bye, 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 bye.